Well, brothers and sisters, welcome to our program. Pro-life leader Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. And we are delighted today to welcome a friend and ally, colleague in this pro-life movement and in the pro-life movement right here in Florida, where our headquarters of Priests for Life is located. He is John Stemberger, and he has done so much for the state of Florida, for the nation, for the pro-life movement, the pro-family movement, that it would take the whole program just to list all of his involvements, activities, and accomplishments. But we'll tell you at least some of them. John, welcome to Priests for Life.
Very kind, thank you.
You right now, you are president of Liberty Counsel Action, right? Which is connected with Liberty Counsel, our friend Matt Staver. And you guys do great work defending religious freedom across the country, defending pro-life advocates and activists. You've had victories at the Supreme Court, and you can tell us a little bit about all of that. But that's a relatively recent position for you.
Yeah.
I think when we first got to know each other, you were heading Florida Family Policy Council, which then
20 years.
20 years, right? And that changed its name to Florida Family Voice just recently. But it was always a pleasure to interact with you there, and of course the great events here in Florida that you held over the years. Just impressive work. Tell our audience just a little bit more about all these great things that you've done over the years.
So Liberty Counsel is actually 8 ministries together.
Yes.
They have a national online school. They have Christians in Defense of Israel. They have a program where they bring college students to Israel for a full week. There is a press operation in Sanford, Florida that's got literally millions of dollars worth of state-of-the-art press equipment where they're only printing for pregnancy centers and churches. So there's a remarkable spread of information and organizations. And I head Liberty Counsel Action, which is the 501c3 political policy organization and arm of the Liberty Counsel Ministries. But it's really remarkable, the ministries that Matt has birthed, him and Anita Staver, and I have the privilege of leading the political part of that, which we have Jonathan Alexander in Washington, D.C. lobbying for us. We've got really writers and just all kinds of people who are engaging social media and communications all over the country.
Now, you were one of the key leaders against Amendment 4 here in Florida. So congratulations. I mean, we all worked together on it, obviously, but gratitude to you and your team for everything that was done. That was quite a victory, and of course, our governor was a big part of that, wasn't he?
It was amazing, and I remember being at a 511 meeting that you were leading in the Museum of the Bible, and it was Stephen Billy from SBA.
Right.
He just said, you know what? We're having a problem with our messaging. I mean, their messaging seems to be better, so we need to mobilize the grassroots. We had so many people that voted for Trump and then voted for the bad abortion amendment in Ohio.
Right.
So I kind of a thing clicked off. I said, that's it. I'm going to spend the next several months till the election mobilizing grassroots. And I've got 20 years of connections and network in Florida. So we had 6 field directors. We printed 2 million rack cards. We had 12,000 signs. We did 7 pastors' conferences, and we just did everything we could to mobilize the base, convince the GOP executive committees, and that's what we did. And Governor DeSantis was amazing. He was a force of nature. I've never seen anything like it. He raised money, he spoke, he organized rallies with doctors. It was really remarkable to see him in action. And he literally was almost involved with the campaign. Every major decision was the governor's office touched and was really involved with. So we're very thrilled to have his leadership here.
Absolutely, and as you know, we when we did the national prayer service on the day of the March for Life just very recently, we recognized the Governor DeSantis' efforts in that regard, and everyone there was so grateful as well from around the country, because it was a national victory, really. It was a technical victory for Florida, but national victory. So you and I have been participating here with so many of our colleagues in the pro-life movement, talking about strategy, talking about next steps going forward. And you're a strategist yourself. Give us some of your thoughts about, and our audience, these are people who are very involved on the grassroots level. They want to know, what's our path forward? And we've been having some important discussions on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of disagreement, and it's healthy because we need to really, iron sharpens iron. We need to understand each other. But so from my perspective, you have to understand what place in history you're in, right? The Bible in Ecclesiastes 3, my father's favorite verse, he would say there's a time and a place for everything, John. And we have to understand our place right now. And really there's a time to change people's minds on abortion, where we have time and space. And there's a time in a campaign where it's like you're doing something strategic to get to end abortion.
Right.
For instance, voting for Donald Trump.
Yes.
That's not ending abortion, but it will get to the goal.
Exactly.
And so it was very difficult because during the campaign, we were trying to get people to focus. We're not focused necessarily on talking about the abortion issues. We're talking about how the amendment is bad, and that will end to the end of abortion. But it's almost like a William Wilberforce. The thing that really was the catalyst to ending the slave trade was the flags on the ship. Had nothing to do with slavery.
There you go.
It was
right.
a strategic move, but he understood that things affect each other, and right. So we have to be strategic in that way. And so I think that now that we don't have an election, this is the time to talk about abortion. This is the time where we have time and space to sit people down, to challenge them with photographs, with pictures, with arguments, and really give them the argument as to why abortion hurts women and why it's murdering an unborn child. And it's an innocent child that has no rights, unfortunately. But I think we can learn from the LGBT movement. If you move too fast, too soon, you lose. Mm-hmm. And the reason why the LGBT movement is losing now is because they didn't have the people with them.
Right.
They had them with gay marriage, supposedly according to the polls, but the trans thing was too fast, too crazy.
Right.
And they lost middle America.
We felt it being shoved down our throats.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And what happens when you lose middle America, you begin to lose elections, right? And you lose the culture. We can learn the same thing in the pro-life movement. We have to be careful we don't go too fast, too soon. There's many things that people are advocating for, and we have to be careful because they may even be true, but if they are too radical, they're going to get pushback, and it's going to be political pushback. We could lose the whole majority, pro-life majorities, and then we're in big trouble. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand that you have to be able to move, and this is why public polling is very important. I mean, we're not governed by polls, we're governed by principle. But when it comes to proposing something, we don't want to waste our time and money on something if the people are not there. If we don't have a sense that the people are ready for this change, then we could do some serious damage. Now, sometimes there's a time for leadership where we're just going to do it anyway, because law does have a teaching factor to it. The Bible says the law is a tutor, it's a taskmaster. So the law does teach and help shape the culture. But at the same time, with political decisions that come to abortion, you have to make sure that you have a consensus. Because if you move out and propose something without a consensus, you fall flat in your face. Politicians go, oh, look, that failed. We're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to go anywhere near that because they see the failure. They want to see win. They want to see progression. And so we have to be careful. There are a lot of people saying, hey, let's just run bills to end all abortion. I would love to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that.
I mean, isn't that our goal, right?
But we have to, we have a 6-week law. That's huge. I mean, I've worked 35 years in Florida just to see our privacy clause destroyed because it never was intended for abortion. It was intended for informational.
And that was a Florida Supreme Court argument, right? The other side was pushing to say, oh, there's a right to abortion in the privacy clause of the Florida Constitution. And the Supreme Court finally said, no, there's not.
That's right.
Okay.
In 1980, we adopted this privacy clause. It was intended for informational privacy. And then 9 years later, the Florida Supreme Court, out of nowhere, said, oh, there's a fundamental right to abortion.
It's like, what? Yeah.
And so Ken Connor and I don't know if you knew Ken Connor.
Yes, I remember Ken, yeah.
He was my mentor, and we've been working for 35 years here in Florida. And finally, we got a pro-life law that's restricting the vast majority of abortions. We got a court that's pro-life, and so we're really good, and Roe is down. So we have a good situation in Florida. But part of the debate, Frank, as you know, is in this very room we were in all day today, is should we focus on the reality that abortion hurts women, or should we focus on the reality that the unborn child is a living human being and abortion kills that human being? And I think it's both. It's both. It doesn't have to be either or. And I think that, if every woman felt compassion upon her unborn child and said this kill, and had a moral framework like that, we would end abortion. But if every woman also thought about this, right? Every pregnant woman said abortion hurts women, and for only selfish reasons, we still win.
Yes.
Right? Because they don't have the abortion. For
Exactly.
selfish reasons, not because of the unborn child, because they don't want to get hurt themselves.
Exactly.
So either way, it's a winning message, and we save children.
Yeah.
So I think it should be either or. I think we should look at the audience, who are we talking to, and I think we should use varied messages. It's a time and a place for everything, right?
Yes.
So I think there's a time and a place for both arguments. In the same way, there was a big debate about whether abortion is a choice or whether it's something that's coerced upon people. And I think it's both. I think women obviously make a choice, but it's not always a free choice, right? There's influences, there's boyfriends that are forcing. There's parents. When I was running the policy council in several years, we got children, young people under 18, calling our offices saying, my mother wants me to abort this baby and I don't want to do it.
Yes.
And here we have a society that's saying, oh, teenagers can abort their children. We used to have a fundamental right in Florida. We've gotten rid of all that. But I thought, good Lord, if you have a fundamental right to abort your child, surely you have a fundamental right to have the child.
Yes.
So we made that argument for several years. But the point is that many women are coerced. It's not just a free thing that they just choose like a Coke or something. And so there's a lot of, in sex trafficking, pimps, that's extreme versions of coercion, but it does happen in our society.
It does indeed. We had in the room today some of the key researchers in this whole area. Dr. David Reardon, for example, gave us a great presentation, and his recent studies show 60% of the people who've had abortions will say this was contrary to my preferences, my values, my convictions. So how can one say that's about freedom of choice? It's about feeling you have no freedom and no choice.
That's right. That's right. So I just think we have to use discernment.
Yeah.
We have to embrace everybody in the movement. People have different views. Some people are more extreme. They want things to happen now, and some people want incremental change. Both strategies, we need to embrace everybody.
That's right.
We can't exclude anyone, because even with the Amendment 4, we won these states' amendments for the first time ever. I mean, these amendments have been passing all over the country.
That's right.
For the first time ever, 3 states actually defeated these things.
That's right.
Florida, South Dakota, and
Nebraska.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we have to study what was done in those states and export that to other states that are going to have these battles, because that's what they're trying to do. Because once these constitutional amendments pass, it's permanent.
That's right.
It is permanent.
And the question of choosing incrementalism, by the way, I always also point out that in many ways, it's not even a matter of us choosing it, it chooses us. Because if we want a law to pass, whatever that lawmaking body is, whether at the state level or federal level, you've just got to have the votes. It's a matter of arithmetic, right?
Yeah,
if you don't have the votes, you're not going to get that measure passed.
Right.
So, and that's why, I'd like to get your thoughts on this too. During this last election cycle, so many of the reporters, that many of them, of course, do not have goodwill, they were interviewing Vance, they were interviewing Trump, and they said, are you going to veto a national abortion ban? You know what my response to that was? The national abortion ban is not going to get on their desk.
That's
because
right.
because if we were in the climate that such a bill did get to their desk, then we would also be in a climate that they would not have to feel that they would have to say that they would veto it. You understand what I'm saying, right? Because like you said, the legislative reality arises from where are the people on this? If you get too far ahead of the people,
that's exactly right.
A, you're not going to be able to pass it in the first place, and B, you're going to get them to push back with a reaction that you don't want. Yeah. But if you're at the point where you do have the votes, well then, and I think this is what some of our folks today were saying too, if you're at the point where you do have the votes, then be courageous and have them cast those votes. Yeah. But you got to be wise. You got to see where public opinion is.
And I think we can learn a lot from William Wilberforce and his fight to end the slave trade. He had both people that were saying we need it now, we need to end slavery now, but he was patient, and then ultimately he saw this opportunity where the flags that were running on the slave ships actually prohibited the slavery from actually happening in the end, so it wasn't the actual issue itself. So I think we just need to be strategic sometimes and sit back and think deeply about the best ways to do these things.
The best ways forward. Where can people find Liberty Counsel and Liberty Counsel Action online?
We're at lcaction.org. That's lcaction.org.
Tell us about some of the victories you've had at the Supreme Court.
So the most recent one was a 9-0 victory with the Shurtleff case. And the Shurtleff case was, there was a Massachusetts, the city of Massachusetts, one of the cities of Massachusetts wanted to have a forum where you could fly any flag. And they flew LGBT flags, they flew all kinds of flags of all different types. But this one Christian wanted to fly a Christian flag, and they told him he couldn't do it.
Oh. And
so we said, wait a second, you have a forum here for any speech, right? But all of a sudden, because this speech is religious, in other words, the flag is representing an idea, a set of ideas in faith, they wouldn't let him do it. And we lost at every single level, on the state court, the lower court, the appellate courts, every level we lost, except the Supreme Court. In a 9-0 decision, even the liberals said, no, this is a free speech issue. If you're going to have a forum where people speak, you have to be able to speak evenly. And so that was an amazing victory. Who gets to go to the Supreme Court and get a 9-0 victory? It was just really a remarkable thing. And it created precedent and took away what's called the Lemon Law, which is a really bad law.
Oh,
that
yes,
interprets
yes.
First Amendment.
That's this idea about excessive interference, right, of religion on the state or the state and religion. What is the
There's
phrase
a test.
that's used?
There's a test.
It's the lemon test.
Yeah, for excessive entanglement.
Entanglement, right? And that's out the window now.
Yeah.
So people like Coach Kennedy, we've interviewed Coach Kennedy on this program, employed by a public school, says a prayer very explicitly out on the football field, right? And the Supreme Court said, listen, you're an American citizen. You can pray, right? You can pray wherever you are. Yeah. And that's just so freeing. I think, John, tell me what you think about this, that with President Trump's Supreme Court appointments and the decisions that have already been made, and some of those decisions happened right around the time also that the Dobbs decision reversed Roe, and the Lemon test was thrown out the window, and Coach Kennedy won his case, and these other cases he mentioned, that I believe that we're in a position now where we're actually more victorious on religious freedom than we even realize. Because what happens with jurisprudence is Supreme Court makes a decision, people might not even be paying attention to it, but then when lower courts have to rule on the same issues, they have got to follow the precedent of the Supreme Court. So I look at this as sort of like an unfolding victory. The victory, we already have the victory, but in the coming years, we're going to see this cascading and unfolding and blossoming, and people are going to turn around and say, wow, things have changed.
That's right.
Yeah, they've already changed now.
Yeah.
And we're going to see it more clearly as the years go on. And that's why today, this very day that we're taping this interview, President Trump spoke at the National Prayer Breakfast, and he actually announced some initiatives for religious freedom, including a task force that he's having our new Attorney General, Pam Bondi, head up. And by the way, you could speak about Pam, right? Yeah. Because she was from right here from Florida. But it's going to be against a task force against anti-Christian bias.
Wow.
I mean, that's going to really intersect with the work that you do, Liberty Counsel Action, because that's what you're coming up against. The case you just described, I mean, anti-Christian bias, it's all over the place.
We just, here in Orange County, Florida, a county over from us, here we're in Brevard County, right? And so there was the county commission was proposing that a moratorium on the building of any new churches in rural areas.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So in a rural area, and think about it, not cities, in rural areas, they didn't want to build any new churches. So we went to the meeting, we wrote a legal memorandum. It was a bunch of people for and against the matter. And we just said, gentlemen, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
I mean, when we presented the law to them, I said, let us help you craft this law.
Yeah.
And I just got a call from one of the commissioners and they said, it's done, it's over. They pulled the idea, so they're not even going to move forward with it. So it's stuff like that, little victories. We write memorandums. We say, guys, please don't do this. Please stand down. We don't have to litigate all the time.
Yeah.
If we can persuade someone, great. If we can't, then we'll be in court and we'll do it the hard way.
That's right. The hard way, right. Tell us about Pam Bondi. I mean, now she's our new U.S. Attorney General, but she served us well here in Florida.
Well, she was a force of nature. She really was tough on a lot of stuff, especially on crime and drugs. She was really great. She's a great pick. We were not in favor of Matt Gaetz, and so I think that might have been a strategic move on his part, but Pam Bondi is going to make a remarkable Attorney General. She has been pro-life in the past, has done the right thing as Attorney General, and I think she's going to be tough. She's going to do what needs to be done and really clean up the whole nonsense that's going on up there.
Yeah, well, you know that from experience, and my own interactions with her have been just so encouraging over the years. What a blessing, right? We're in a great moment, great point in time. And so once again, lcaction.org?
lcaction.org.
Yes. Please, friends, visit Liberty Counsel Action and Liberty Counsel overall. That's lc.org, right?
Yes.
The broader, and again, as John explained, 8 different divisions or ministries and activities going on. Please plug into it, keep informed, be supportive of it. And thanks, friends, for all that you do for the unborn, for the freedom of pro-life activists, and for the good of our country. God bless you. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, John Stemberger. And friends, we will talk to you again very soon.
Hello, this is Father David Begany, one of the many members of Priests for Life. This organization is one of the largest and most visible pro-life ministries in the world. The Priests for Life team relies on your financial support to be able to do its work, produce its programs, and travel the world to advocate for the unborn. May I ask you to support Priests for Life generously? Go today to prolifegift.org and give us as generous a gift as you can. Thank you for your kindness, and be assured of our prayers for you every day.
Follow him, Father Frank Pavone, Fr. Frank Pavone. He is the National Director of Priests for Life. Please go to priestsforlife.org.
Frank Pavone. Frank, thank you.